here, 25 years.
25 years?
Oh,
Aye. So during that 25 years, have you seen a lot of changes in the factory?
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Oh, aye. Hard graft here then. Everything was doing, see what they could do now, everything was doing with the grape at that time again. Doing here and chocolating and with that grape. 2 years.
But it's more mechanical now?
Oh, yes, aye. Last 16 years, I suppose, we can dig here again.
Is that right?
But little bigger, out the beds and that's forklifts. Everything was a sock butter for that over here. It was all stowed up and bucket and stowed up, team down and loaded.
Is that right?
Wheel of it up.
Aye. So, and during that 25 years, have you had different jobs inside the company here, or is it still the same job?
No, I've been out here.
You've been outside?
Oh, I've been outside. Oh, I've been in and out there, so I came with jobs I used here. 12 ton is a biggie. Now they're tier than 25.
But in each lorry?
Oh, big artics now. A QL lorries was not a lot of stuff we can do. The QL lorries now is a 4 So it's a long time now to get the fucker.
But much the same production you think the day before there was then?
Oh no, you can't get the stuff. No. Shit then. You'd been starting about October, November, get them in sprat. So you can round the clock till maybe March. Yeah. Just every day, daylight days was gone. Can't have to. There's no hard pizza back now. Was half a hell of a difference as always.
Sick.
There must have been a lot more folk there in the season. Been about 4 there, I think. I think there was. Somewhere 4 there.
Oh, I'm not the thing.
I get up to the surgery. When I get down, and the doctor says, "How are you feeling, Mr. Trapnick?" "Oh," I says, "I'm like a chap I get sick." And the doctor examined him an hour and he couldn't see anything anyway. And he says, "What do you think's wrong with yourself?" "And again, doctor," he says, "but if whenever I say work, if a cow swings up my back."
When I New Year's Day to give them exercise, and it was a day of the walk in the village here. And the pipes, there was a whole band at that time, and to come down the village here, you see, and turn to the bottom and get a walk up again. And they heard the pipes playing when it's fine you like the horse. And their logs get for it.
So they like music?
They like it music.
Did you feel they worked better with music?
They did that. They
They
did that. You whistled their song till them, I think it would beat it.
You worked the horse yourself?
Oh, aye. Rode the horse. It was 1952, we got a truck there with a horse up that. 1952. The bear died with grass sickness, so I'd finished the horse. The song this
Ireland, at Orkney, Shetland, the Broch, Shields and all the way down to Yarmouth. And in the first year or two, they were fairly uncomfortable years for me, cooking in a steam drifter. Went aboard with my uncle on my mother's side. They had boats as well. And then I carried on onto the deck, and from there my mate's ticket, skipper's ticket, and I had my skipper's ticket. 20 years old, I had to wait till I was 21 to get my skipper's ticket. So I was aboard then, probably, it was the tugboat in Broch and probably in Scotland at that time, and the Allachie, and I became mate to that boat at a very early age. Very hard working boat. We used to work the lines at Stranraer in the winter time, and the lines out at the Viking in the spring, followed by the herring fisheries. 14 weeks maybe a summer fishery. For Stornoway to Shields again, to the Broch, and then we would go south to Yarmouth. and then maybe a month off about Christmas time to mend the gear, and then off again to the winter fisheries. So that was the sequence of events in my life before the war. It was our work. And later, while when I was 5 or 6 of us, and hauled it and went to Holland, Wymoeden. Had the weekend in Wymoeden, came out on the Monday, shot again, and I think we got 17 crowns, and we went into Scheveningen. And then came out and went away across, shot, went into Yarmouth, took a spare gear aboard, and made for home.
Yes.
As I was going down the river, I realised I was saying goodbye to a way of life which I had been part for all my life. I was actually minesweeping there during the war a while as well. And when I was going around what we call the brush at Yarmouth, you go round and out, the tears were in my eyes. That was the end. There was a thread going through my life and my life as well. And that thread now is no longer in the fishing industry. That's one of the problems.
As terug firma, a great worden and he liked a good job. He was coming home next to the pub, and he had the boss the kirkyard. Sommers kronen had made up a four on the day above here, and he on 5 sheets and come out and scare him and see if they could stoop him. He can do the pubs again. So he's come on wandering up the road singing to himself, and out there dances and around about him and danced in the road, and he blinked at him a while and he says, "Is this the resurrection? Or is you lad just out for a dander?"
That's my granny's.
That's your granny's?
But I had it, you see, so I kept it. Then as was my grandfather's. And mother kept the dishes in, so that's it.
Right. So this was exactly the same as it was when you lived in it? Oh, you're here, darling.
That's as 4 years, but I worked him there up 1 and 6 each, and he got married.
Is that right?
And I was over to £100 for him. Oh, each maybe. Mother had it. My grandfather was dead or I was born. And then, at lamp in the window, he got up for his best man. I think it was handmade, you see.
Of course.
He just did a poem in it.
Aye. And the table, was this your...
The table's not mine, my table's down in the museum.
Oh.
And they never brought it back, and I asked it and asked it and asked it. I'm doing the museum to roadside.
Aye.
I got really pissed, because it was a good day.
Aye, was that head horseman, was it? Aye.
Kind of later, if you met him, you had to see, you see. We do.
Was there more of a family than you?
Aye.
Aye.
Was it there? From we was here, it was 4.
Aye.
I was honest.
Aye. And did the rest of the family sleep in this room here?
No, it was in the cradle, in the crib, you see, with that crib.
Aye, aye. And your father and mother slept in there, and you slept here in this room?
I was here.
Aye. 5-year-old? When you left here?
No, I was older than that.
Oh, I see.
It was at school.
Aye.
You down your school for here.
So how long did you live in here yourself?
Which is 3 years.
About 3 years. Aye.
Minister and his beetle both liked a drum. They were away one day and they had been a drop too much. So the minister says, we'll go home, John. We'll go stop before we go to the house. And I'll walk backwards and forwards, and you tell me if I'm going straight. So the minister said, backwards and forwards, and he says, how am I doing, John? He says, not so bad, minister, but how the hell's that with you?
Father, Lappy, Patty, and Lappy, Sandra, and Claude the Mice,
fine, and they either granny and married. Ah, and
Gan grele alone da like. I've been black since I was 10 years.
Aye. That hussy was the hussy for...
Ed Bailey's wall was writing to the laird on behalf of my great-great-grandfather when he was writing pleading poverty when it was new built.
Fun house that hussy built?
No, well, no, it would have been it's a second generation house, you see. So it would have been after 1800.
Mitchel, look.
It's with Patrick's Hornsey. Around between 1830 and 35. Most likely 1831 or 32.
And this is the oldest house down in Charleston, do is it?
Yes, this is the same blood as Hornsey. The same Buchan, a Patrick as Hornsey. It was Patrick's youngest son, Hornsey. I'll head again, John. Come. Oh, well. He leave the cast on it, he only had smart and a fishes, he can. But we only got truth on him. No, I never see truth nuts. No, this is sure when he got the says he can. You want to 38. That's spoilers. So you're going to have it. They're all fish wives. Well, in this village you can, I'll tell you what it did, they cured a lot of what in the summertime, all the old fish wives in this village dried what they called coals. That was big seeds. They called them coals. Black. That was massive seeds. You kind of dried them and cured them. And sold them around the countryside. All the older fishermen, I can mind the coals, but younger men than me wouldn't mind on them drying coals. But I just can mind because my grandmother did it on the braes down there. But younger men again, they wouldn't mind the coal drying. And the fish wife, even when I was young, in this village here, there would have been, I would say we would be pushed when I was young even to be dull figures. Aye. My grandmother, and that's one in Charleston, and Mary Duffy, she belonged in Verrall, went married to Charleston. I was two from Charleston that were going when I was young. Married to the country with creels on their backs, you know. And it was mainly barter, I can assure you that. The fish was sold, and they would get a bottle probably of cream, maybe a pound of butter, or maybe even just meal, depending on how the farm people were placed, or eggs. But I can assure you that the creel didn't get any lighter. They would have a basket besides the creel on their back, they would have a basket on their arm. A spangy basket, you know, this wasn't the same sort of stuff as the creels, but I call it spangy, I don't know what wands maybe, I don't know what you would call it. I just used to. But they would have that on their arm, you know. That would be full of fish as well. All they could carry. Even die daar is veilig, kan hij ook.
If we get not good, you just let it on us and
They were speaking about ghosts, and I told them that I saw in a day, and they got off a phone. I was going to walk up to my work at Brookside, and I had been up through a little party, and there was ghosts at that firm. Well, they said there was. And I was taken up through this party, and there was something waving back and forth like that. No, I said, here's my ghost. And I wondered if I would just stuck to my heels and ran for what I was walking. No, I'll just wrestle along, let it be. I was a lot bad, but I plucked up courage and I get back. Travel's on a bit, and then I stopped and nothing, blood yelling. And I says, here goes, and I traveled dressed up. And there was a gear shade at the corner, and when I was near up at it, there was 12 young horses. Oh, that's 12 claps, like we said. They were young horses. And there was one way a white face, and the window was broken, and that speed was out, and that was clawing its neck on its side. And I didn't know, again I run, I saw a ghost that next. That morning.
Is this rasps, is it?
That's right. I was born at a farm of West Creehey, Achnagat, on the 15th of March 1914. My father was tenant farmer of that farm, and both my parents actually belonged to the parish of Aberdour, both from farming stock in the parish of Aberdour. I went to school, which was 2 miles away, at Clochcan, and went to that school until I was aged 11, and then I went on to the Maud Higher Grade School. I cycled 3 miles to Achnagat and took the train. Started in May 1926, but you will recollect that that was a time of the coal strike and the railway strike, and the trains didn't run, so I cycled the 7 miles to Maud after that. I wasn't very interested in schooling, but I was always quite good at maths, and my parents certainly didn't want me to come home to the farm because farming was very depressed at that time. However, I went to Gordon's College in Aberdeen for 2 years, and while I was there I sat exam for the bank, to be told after I passed that there was a waiting list of 200 and there was very little chance of getting in. So for the 6 months or so that I was at school after I passed the exams, nothing was heard of from the bank. So I
didn't want to carry on with schooling and came home and to work on the farm. I was told by my father that if I was going to come home, I had to do a man's work, and that never did me any harm. While I was at home working on the farm, I got a turn of most jobs. Took a while as a man, and then a second cattleman, and then second horseman. In 1937, my father said to me that he wanted me, by that time he had taken Caborty, and he wanted me to go down to Caborty. I wasn't very keen because I had got involved with the junior farmers. I was secretary of the Deer Junior Farmers Club. I think I was instrumental, and I was a founder member of the Deer Junior Farmers, and thereafter I was secretary for 4 years, and then I followed that by being the chairman. And I was interested in a few things and I wasn't too keen in going down to New Aberdour. However, eventually I said that I would go down if my father would make me tenant. And an arrangement was made that I would go down as tenant. I didn't have any money, so I had to borrow. The stock of the farm was valued, and I became the tenant, and I didn't have money to pay for the stock, so I had to borrow from my father. He was good enough to give me a loan of money, and I thought, well, it'll take me 10 years at any rate to pay off the stock. I mentioned earlier that I was quite keen in maths. It was my best subject, so the last year that I was at Gordon's College, I took bookkeeping as a subject, and I was quite bright at that. I think I was about top of the class at that. So I had been keeping my father's books. I continued to do this after I went down to Caborty, and I kept books for myself. The first year I had a very small profit, I think 100 or 2. The second year I actually had a loss. And as I mentioned before, things were very bad in the 1930s. However, by 1939, when there was word of war breaking out, the Ministry of Food became the sole buyer for most of our products, and things improved. And I was able to pay back my father's loan quicker than I thought I would do. And then he said to me, well, now, he says, I want you to buy the place. I was quite happy to be renting the place, but he told me that if I didn't come to terms with him and buy the place, that he would sell it, as both the farms were mortgaged. There was he wasn't getting much of it. Eventually I bought the farm, and I think that although I wasn't happy at all at the time, it turned out to be a good proposition. During the war years, we were sometimes very short of workers on the farm, and there were times when I had only 1 or 2 men when actually we needed 3 or 4 at that time. So I had to work fairly hard, and it was sometimes had to be a very long day. So it wasn't until the end hostilities and when things came back to normal, that I began taking an interest in other things. To begin with, I was a member of the local branch of Farmers Union, and I became the chairman. I think I had two terms of being chairman of the Strichen branch of the Farmers Union. And eventually I became a member of the executive of the Farmers Union, the Aberdeen-Kincardine area, and became chairman. That took me to the council of the Farmers Union, which met alternately in Edinburgh and Glasgow. And from that I really became interested in, particularly in the marketing of the farm produce. I always maintained that the farmer's greatest weakness was in the marketing of his produce, and probably that is still true today. Meanwhile, on the farm, my main interests on the farm were traditional fattening of cattle and sheep and pigs, growing oats, barley and potatoes. I was spending, during my chairmanship of Buchan Meat, I was spending most of the working day on Buchan Meat. And I've been very lucky in my time having staff that carried on the work on the farm when I was busy engaged otherwise. And I may say, I would say here that I never had any salary from Buchan Meat. I was voted my expense, I got expenses and was voted in the last few years an honorarium, but I was never actually in the pay of Buchan Meat. Back on the farm I was lucky that I had lads that carried on the work. Certainly I found that after I gave up being chairman of Buchan Meat, that the farming became more profitable because I could devote more of my time to the farm. I had been asked if I would become a member of the finance committee of the Conservative Party locally, and this I agreed to do. Remember, I hadn't been put on the executive, but I became a member of the finance committee. By the time that the elections came round, the annual election for a new executive, the vice chairman was moving up to be the president, and the chap who was vice chairman, who would have been vice chairman, had been told that he would have to, because of health, he would have to give up outside work, or he might have to get, he was a teacher, or he might have to give up his job. So they asked me if I would consider, he was vice chairman, asked me if I would consider standing as chairman. And I agreed to do this. So I became chairman. The first meeting that I attended of the executive of the Conservative Party, I did in the chair. And that meeting was a meeting at which we'd appoint a new candidate, and Albert Macquarie was subsequently appointed. Now, I tried to help, being chairman, I tried to help the Conservatives. I wanted to see a strong organisation built up, and we got branches set up in every village and district. And I think that helped a good deal when the election came round and when the Conservatives did get a candidate elected. by that time I had done my stint as chairman. I have taken the view regarding local politics, same view as I took in Buchan Meat and in the cooperatives I had to do with on behalf of the farmers, that you're working for the people that elected you. You are working for them, and I feel free, and have been all my life, all my time, feel free to say what I think, irrespective of any party involved.
There was a farmer going to him mark with his old car, great big flashy car, get by him on the road, and he thought his car was stupid, and he would ging out over and see what was the deal with him. Well, he messed it over his off, and he landed at the place. He get over and got on to the driver of that big car. But he says, I never touched you. No, he says, I can. But you get by. If you get by, ask quick. Because I thought my car was stupid, and I get out over to see what I do with it.